Welcome to the Stories in EDU podcast, the show where we talk with real educators and hear their powerful impact. Their stories will grab you, inspire you, and show you the reach of the work we do. And now, the Bretons Group presents your hosts, Josh Gauthier.
Welcome back to the Stories in EDU podcast. I'm really excited to bring another story to everyone. And I'd like to introduce our guest for tonight, Adrianne. Adrianne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So can you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I'm Adrianne. I teach 7th grade math. I have 3 80-minute blocks. I teach an accelerated class and then 2 Core 7 classes. I also do intervention work with students.
All right. So I think our story tonight is probably going to be math themed in some way. I know that every week here we're going to be bringing you stories from educators of all kinds out there, whether they be middle school, high school, elementary school, from all over the map in the Stories in EDU podcast. And tonight we're talking to Adrianne. So Adrianne, you've recently, somewhat recently transitioned to the math classroom. It's been in the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, I think this is my 5th year back in the math classroom. I taught math and then I did 8 years in computer literacy after getting a master's in educational technology. And then when our school switched to the block schedule, I switched.
Interesting. So you've been able to see a difference then in math instruction as it was, I'm trying to do the math in my head, 13 years ago versus how it is today. So is there anything that you've seen that's different? I mean, we've had the Common Core since then. There's been a lot of great research that has come out since then. For instance, like Joe Buller's book, Mathematical Mindsets, which was excellent, and a bunch of other resources that we could spend all night talking about. So what's something that you've seen that's a big change from when you used to teach it to now, or even 4 years ago till now?
Well, I think the biggest change from the first time I was in the math classroom to now is really how much we work with kids on conceptual knowledge and conceptual understanding. I'm a visual learner, so I think that a piece of that has always been a part of my teaching. In order for me to explain it to kids, I had to be able to explain why things were that way, but it was never really about the students owning that. And now there's so much more time spent on allowing the students to explore the numbers and explore the ideas so that they can really own that understanding of what's happening with the numbers, the connections between the concepts. And that's where we've seen a lot of shift in math and in all education, really for kids, that it's not just the teacher imparting all of this wisdom. It really does need to be, exploration, guided inquiry, collaboration with people as they just kind of process and discuss all of these ideas that are going through their head. And I think with that, we are seeing the students are able to do so much more with that information. They have such a deeper understanding of the math that I see kids in 7th grade doing higher level math that they, were not able to do 15 years ago.
Wow, that is great to hear. That is excellent. I think as social media has kind of fueled the whole math and the Common Core era type things with all the crazy worksheets that they post pictures of, I think when you get down to what this modern way of instructing math has gotten to, like you said, I think there's a lot deeper conceptual knowledge that's happening because it isn't just plug in these numbers and you get this and we're moving on because we're getting to the next concept. So I think it's awesome to hear that you every day are seeing the fruits of this. And I really want to dive deeper into that. When I think of my own math experience, I was pretty good in math. I was taking advanced classes all the way up into being in high school. In my junior year, I took pre-calc, and I felt like I hit a wall there. I hit a wall in that math class, and it was no longer easy. And at the point it became no longer easy for me, that was the last math class that I ever took. I think I had to take one in college for credit, but I didn't do it willingly, and I actually took one that was lower level than I needed to be just to get the credits and pass it, which is a horrible way of approaching a class, but I was just done. Like I didn't really want to challenge myself in that anymore. And so have you seen students who have come into your classroom who have that feel to them, like they're just, I'm not a math person, this isn't easy for me, so as soon as I can stop taking math, I'm done taking math? And then on the flip side, have you seen where the way that you've instructed math, or the way that it is currently taught, has turned that around for a student?
I'm going to try to remember both parts to that question. If I forget, just pipe in.
No
I think when it comes to the mathematical mindset, there are many students like you were in school, and oftentimes the kids who do well with math, oftentimes they're good at the memorizing. It gets them so far of they don't have the full conceptual understanding, but they're able to still make do with the algorithms. They've memorized those, it works. And then you get to a point, sometimes it's in middle school, sometimes it's in high school, where there's just too many rules and there's too much. And if they only have that surface understanding, they really do kind of tap out, like, I can't do this. And because they haven't been building that growth mindset all along, that of what math really can be, it is very challenging for them. For me, that was in 8th grade. I was put into an accelerated math class, and I never had to pay attention in math before. And I think it was actually absolute value that a very simple concept that I did not pay attention to when it was being taught in class. And I was like, what's happening? I don't know what's going on. And I dropped out of accelerated math because it was too much. And so I think we see it at that end. I see in my accelerated class, I do notice that, and it is something that we work on, is really understanding what it means to be a mathematician and the different things that mathematicians do, such as, use their reasoning, and they need to be able to, not just say this is the answer because of this rule, but be able to really justify why that works with those numbers. And then there are the kids who, on the flip side of that, I guess have felt beaten down by math for so many years, where it has been a struggle and they have had to work hard, and they are just trying to buy their time till they don't have to take math classes anymore. And one thing that I've really been working on this year in my class, I read the book over the summer by Tracy Zager, Becoming the Math Teacher You Wish You'd Had. Fabulous book. I highly recommend it to anyone who's teaching math. And each chapter kind of focuses on things that mathematicians do and how we can help build these things in our students and help them see these things. And one of the chapters is on intuition, that idea of, you just kind of have like this gut feeling of, either a place to start with the strategy or that something isn't quite right. And it's really been amazing to me. There was a student, he was taking I don't remember if it was a test or if he was retaking it, because there was, some things he didn't understand the first time around. And he asked me a question. He, was doing this problem of multiplying fractions. And he's like, well, this is what I did, but I just don't know if it's right. And I looked at him and I said, that's great. That's your intuition kicking in, saying, I'm not sure what's going on with these numbers. And I could even just see, like, normally that's the point where the kid is feeling defeated. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And the idea, I could just see it in his eyes, that as soon as I made that comment to him, it was like, yes, okay, I do. Like, I might not know how to do this problem, but I do know something because I feel like this isn't it. And then he was open to listen to those discussions. And now let's talk about what we can do. And, just then guide him with just really advancing questions. It's not like I gave him any answers. I just kind of helped his thinking get to that point, so that he could work through that problem, because he did have, all the information up there. It was just getting jumbled. And I think sometimes students don't see what it is they can do, because everything always seems to focus on, oh, this part was wrong, here was the mistake. And that's where, in order to really help them shift that mindset and help them really want to work through those mistakes, you have to help them see what it is they're already doing and what, whether it's, I've seen kids with so many strategies when I'm talking with them, even just for the calculating in terms of adding or subtracting or, those parts where they might not have the concept we're doing, but they really have a strong foundation. And if you can point those things out to them, they're more willing to to have that perseverance and stick with the concept they're struggling with if we can frame it around, here is what you already know, and work from there. I've seen just a big difference if I can just frame some of that differently for them.
That is so cool. And I really like how you're approaching it from a strength model, not a deficit model with the students. And I think just changing those little things are so important to really switch on a more positive personal image of who we are, whether it is in math or in any other classroom. And I think it sounds like you're doing a lot of awesome things over there, and the students are responding to that. So that is really good stuff. And I think if anybody had an opportunity to go check out some of what you're doing, I think that'd be great. I know you can follow a little more in what Adrianne is doing in her blog over at burnsmath.blogspot.com. So I'd really encourage you to check that out. Whether you're a math teacher or not, I think there's a lot of great pedagogical stuff going on over there. So we have one last part to finish up here that we're going to do every episode, and that's play a little bit with the Bretons group Game of Stories. And if you are a first-time listener to the podcast, this is a 52-card deck of cards that each has a different discussion prompt for professional learning discussions that there's a lot of awesome stuff in here. So I'm just going to pull a card tonight that both of us are going to answer. We're going to try and respond in about a minute, and we'll let Adrianne go first because we're so nice to our guests here. We let them go first. All right, so the card that we have says, start a blog. Tell a story about the blog you started or the process to get started or the best tools to use to start a blog. Maybe a story about somebody you know who started a blog and had a tremendous amount of success reflecting in a blog and sharing it with others. Could you somehow tell a story about what you would like to happen regarding starting a blog? Should probably get bonus points if you recommend some preferred platform options. Just reading the card.
I didn't realize there were points involved.
It might have been a bit of a leading question or a leading statement to talk about your blog ahead of time, but feel free to address it. Really anything about your blog that you want to talk about or about the blogging experience.
Well, I started my blog and I would publish my blogs, but then I wouldn't actually share the links with anybody. So that was how I got started. It was kind of my own private blog that was out there, but I didn't really let anybody know. When I did finally start sharing and putting it out, usually on Twitter is where my large PLN is, just the support that I got from people. And then it really becomes more interactive where people can leave their questions or their comments, because I write the blog for myself to reflect on my teaching practices, but to turn it into a conversation, just obviously I get so much more out of it. I think one of the questions on there was, it was really, there's a mathematician, math coach, Mark Chubb, whose blog I love, and he's very reflective and always kind of puts questions out there for his readers to think about. And I think it's a lot of those types of things that got me blogging as I was reflecting on the questions that he would ask.
Excellent. Well, that's awesome. My blogging story, let's see here. I've been blogging off and on for about, probably 4 or 5 years. I always kind of wanted to when I first started sharing what's going on in the classroom. And then I really was pretty bad about keeping up with it. So then I started a new one that was more general, and it kind of morphed from like technology tutorials to a whole bunch of different things. But probably my best blog experience is something I hope that gets brought back pretty soon, and some discussions I've had say yes. I was part of a website called EdBeam that was started by a couple of good friends of mine, Michael Matera and Adam Moreno. And the whole idea with that is there's people like me out there who blog once in a great while. So I might blog a couple times a year. And somebody else might blog a couple times a year, and somebody else might blog a couple times a year. So on our own, our blogs really aren't filled with a bunch of stuff and are hard for people to access because we're not pushing regular content out there. So it's super sporadic. Whereas if all of us combine together in one place, and that's what EdBean was, my couple of blog posts a year and their couple of blog posts a year, blah, 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 you add all that together. Now you've got a lot of blog posts happening from a bunch of different people all in one place that really amplifies everybody's voice together. And that was really cool. That was going pretty strong a couple of years ago. Then a couple of the leaders kind of went off into different directions, but now they're starting to head back to a situation where we might be able to get that going again. And I just thought the concept of that was so cool in that there's a lot of power in what we all have to say, and to have a really big community of bloggers all in one platform, I thought was really cool, and something I hope to help get going again. So there we go. I think I did pretty good on a minute there. I need to start using a timer. I'm pretty bad about that, but I will do better next time. All right. Well, we really appreciate you taking some time out of what I'm sure is a busy life with your family, and of course, preparing to create the next generation of mathematicians. So thank you for joining us on the Stories in EDU podcast.
This has been fun. Thank you.
And we're excited to come to you every week with another news story about what's happening out there with real teachers out there in classrooms all across America. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for tuning in to the Stories in EDU podcast. Please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, thanks again.